Welcome to Jasmine Pollock's First Impression Sports Talk, the fastest growing sports talk show in the country. And now, here's your host, Jasmine Pollock.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Jasmine's First Impression Sports Talk. And today I have an amazing guest with me, three-time gold medalist Olympian Devon Harris. Welcome, Devon Harris. Thank you for coming and being involved in this and giving me your time today.
Hey, Jasmine, it's great to hang out with you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I'm so thankful to have you here. Just to get started in this interview, who is Devon Harris? What is your background? Who is Devon Harris?
Well, let me correct one thing you said earlier. Three time. I think you said I'm a three-time gold medalist. Now I'm a three-time Olympian. Yes, still dreaming of winning that first gold medal. But we'll see how that goes. So Devon Harris, you can probably tell by my accent, I'm Jamaican, baby, born and bred in Kingston, in a place called Olympic Gardens. Believe it or not. One of the toughest ghettos in the world, I like to describe it. Really rough, impoverished, violent neighborhood that I grew up in. But I love sports. Couple of things that about me when I was growing up. I loved school and I love sports. I love school because I actually did like learning, but in school I could play. What's more fun than playing, but did well in school as well, in classes as well. And ended up in high school where my first love was actually soccer, but ended up running track. Middle distances, 800, 1500 meters. Everybody assumed that because I'm Jamaican, I'm a sprinter. Well, maybe I was, but not a very fast one. So growing up, I had these two big kind of overarching dreams. One was to be an army officer, to enlist in the Jamaica Defense Force, and the other was to become an Olympian. So right after high school, I enlisted in the army and did my training at the Royal Military Academy, Sandhurst in England, which is like West Point, the British equivalent of West Point here in the U.S. And then after that, I'm serving as an officer, and the idea of the Jamaica bobsled team came about, and here was my shot to fulfill my second dream of being an Olympian. And I ended up being on that first team, competed in 3 Olympics. And now I get to hang out with you.
Oh, thank you. Speaking of the Olympics, how was that whole experience for you? Like, a lot of people do not get that experience. How was that for you?
In one word, amazing. So if you imagine you grew up watching the Olympics and you see these men and women on TV marching in the opening ceremonies, and you're really in awe, admiring them, and you're thinking, whoa, those must be some of the best athletes in the world. And then one day, here it is that you set foot in a stadium during an Olympic opening ceremonies, and I promise you're seeing more cameras than you can count. In that moment, your image is being flashed around the world, and some little kid is probably thinking that you're one of the best athletes in the world. It's just an amazing experience. It's just extraordinary to be in the Olympic Village and meeting athletes, people who under normal circumstances you'd never meet, and really forming this lifelong bond. Just being able to watch TV years later and go, oh wow, I know him or I know her, and and have that bond and that kinship is amazing.
Now, I know you went in for, is it called bobsledding?
Yes, bobsledding.
So explain that whole sport. I've seen it before. I've never sat down and actually watched it, but what was that sport like, and how did you prepare yourself for that?
Yeah, bobsledding is one of the best sports in the world. Come on. It's obviously a winter sport, which is kind of unusual for a Jamaican to be competing in. It's called the champagne of thrills, actually. So bobsledding, there are 2 kinds. There's a 2-man bobsled and the 4-man bobsled. And basically, you have the sled that fits 2 or 4 persons, and you stick it at the top of a hill. It's actually a track that's made specifically for the sport that runs anywhere from, I think the shortest track might be about 1,400 meters, and the longest one maybe about a mile, 1,600 meters. So you push that thing, you jump in, and then the driver, the guy in the front, has to drive it, drive the sled to the bottom of the track. And if you make a mistake, you can crash. It's dangerous. You could actually get killed. But if you don't crash and you don't get killed, then it is indeed the champion of thrills. It's just an amazing ride, incredibly competitive, and just a fun sport to do.
Wow, that's very interesting because I've seen it before and I was like, that's a really interesting sport, and it's just amazing to see that I'm talking to somebody who actually played that sport. Do you still talk to your current the teammates you had before, or is like we don't talk anymore? It's just that kind of
No, yeah, we are loosely in touch, I guess is a correct way to answer that there. So we had two brothers on the team, Chris and Dudley Stokes. They're in Jamaica. Spoke to Chris a few months ago, actually. I haven't spoken to Dudley in a while. Then Michael White. I live in New York, and Michael also lives in New York on Long Island. Now and again, we'll text each other just so we're loosely in touch.
That's good, though. That's really amazing. Speaking of which, now I hear that you are a motivational speaker.
Yeah, they describe me as such, yes.
Okay, so how was that experience for you? What is Devon Harris doing now after being the Olympian, after being in the military? What are you doing now to motivate others?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. So I get to travel around the world a little bit, not so much now because of COVID, although things are opening up, and get to grace the stages and share my experiences and the insights from those experiences. So, thankfully, I've had a set of life experiences that really connects with people on so many different levels. So I'm able to speak about teamwork and leadership and diversity and pursuing the dream and overcoming obstacles. My favorite phrase, as it says here on my shirt, is to keep on pushing. So that's my challenge, using analogies from bobsledding, of course, to talk about how all of us have a responsibility really to push ourselves beyond where we find ourselves, and to recognize that this journey of life is filled with many twists and turns and changes, and you have to be adaptable to those change, and at the same time, work to overcome the challenges that we inevitably will face in our lives.
Absolutely, I agree with that, and it's very amazing that individuals can talk to someone who has a long career like you've had, being in the military and being an Olympian. A lot of people don't get that firsthand experience at all. They just go into the Olympics and just think, okay, I'm practicing, and they'll never have that person to talk to who was a former Olympian. What are some places that you traveled, and what was some of those experiences talking to different people? Have you spoken to different Olympians currently?
Yeah, so I think let's start with places I've traveled to and spoken. So I've traveled and speak mostly in the U.S., across the U.S., but Europe, the Caribbean, the Pacific Rim, down in South America as well. So it's kind of cool. I love traveling. I absolutely love meeting people. So if you're not going to be an Olympian traveling and meeting other athletes around the world, I guess the second best thing is to be a motivational speaker, meeting people from around the world. So that's amazing, and I absolutely love the opportunity when they present themselves to be in a place where I'm hanging out with former, or I'm going to call them current Olympians or future Olympians. It's the energy in those rooms are amazing, because they're those people that you watch on TV and you think they're amazing, and they are amazing athletes, and you get to hang with them and just chat as peers, and then they're the ones who are kind of upcoming, who you can see the fire and the hunger in their eyes as well, and remind you of when you were competing, and you get a chance to be a mentor of sorts to them. So it's a win-win all around, I think.
Absolutely. Speaking of the Olympics are a couple of days away. So being that you were a former Olympian, what is some advice that you give? I know everyone's nerves are kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be on this big stage in Tokyo.
Hmm.
What advice could you give to future Olympians and the Olympians that are playing in a couple of days? What advice could you give them, being that you're a former Olympian?
Yeah. I think the first thing is really to enjoy the entire experience. I don't know that there's any nugget I can give them in terms of competing. They know what they need to do already. They've been doing the sport for years. They've trained, they've prepared themselves, their mind, their body, their souls to be at the Olympic Games so they can execute. Um, the challenge, I think, is getting there and getting so wrapped up in what you're there for, the competition. And I'm not saying
Right.
it shouldn't be, but don't lose the chance. And I know it's COVID, and it's
Hmm.
obvious it's going to be a very different experience from when I competed. But as best as you can, don't lose the chance to form those bonds with your fellow Olympians. It's going to be an amazing experience.
Very, very important to bond and get that moment, because I know it's a huge moment for them. And some of these people, this is a once in a lifetime kind of thing, being an Olympian, playing in the Olympics. And then, there's probably some people who've never been across the world before. Speaking of COVID, do you think that we'll still have the Olympics? Because there's still some sort of question marks about that, and we've had some outbreaks still. Do you think the Olympics will still occur?
I think so. I mean, it's a really challenging time for everybody, from the organizers all the way down to the athletes themselves, and it breaks my heart, seeing some of the reports about athletes being testing positive and really can't compete. That does really suck, but
Mhm.
welcome to life. But so having said that, I think that they're going to find a way to push through and stage the Olympic Games. And I just want to encourage the athletes who are there to take as many precautions as they possibly can. You know the deal: wear your mask,
Yeah.
wash your hands, don't touch your face, practice, distancing and that kind of, as much as you can. Please, please, please be careful.
Absolutely. I really hope we do have it, because there's amazing athletes. And speaking of the amazing athletes and the amazing sports we're going to watch, what specific events will you be watching? And are there any current Olympians now that you're looking forward to seeing?
Well, come on. I'm from Jamaica. I'm going to be watching the sprints, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Um, there are some really exciting young athletes, and obviously some veterans as well. I'm heartbroken that Shakari Richardson isn't
Mhm.
competing.
Yeah.
She's a badass. Can I say that? She's she's really talented, and I would have loved to see her compete. Yet, oh man, I was just reading about her. Forgive me, I just forgot her name, but the new world record holder in the 400-meter hurdles, the American girl, um, and the former Olympic champion. That is going to be a nice race. They are really competitive, and of course, I'm looking forward to seeing my Jamaican countrymen do their thing. Johan Blake. Um, uh, Fraser Price,
Mhm.
Elaine, all of them. They're gonna, they're gonna kick up some ass as well.
Oh yeah, there is a lot of speed on the Jamaican team, a bunch of speed. I've seen it time and time again. But speaking of Shakira, I really wish we could have seen her, because I think she was on it. I really do. But Devon, that wraps up our interview. I want to thank you so very much for giving your insight, for giving advice to the future Olympians, to current Olympians, and just giving me your time. Thank you so much for being here.
No, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for thinking of me, inviting me. It was great chatting with you. Want to wish you best of luck with the show. It's amazing, guys. Make sure you tune in every Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern, to Jasmine on her First Impressions Sports Talk. It's
Thank you so
it's a
much.
wrap.
And thank you to the audience for tuning in. And thank you, Leon, for producing. See you guys next time here on Jasmine's First Impression Sports Talk.